It begins with a peaceful drive on a road in the woods. Ashley rides alone until she arrives somewhere to collect a man. He is her husband, Max. As they ride together, he says he doesn't know what she wants him to say. Ashley tells him he could thank her and apologize too. The man only does the first part. Supposedly, he was in prison. He learned how to make a shiv from being there for slightly over 1 year. Then he takes some pictures out that have their son on them. Max asks her about him. She says the boy is doing well, he's currently in school. The couple rides along while playing around with switching stations on the radio. Ashley pulls over because of that. It doesn't take long for them to become intimate right there in the vehicle. Lucky for them, no other people drive by. While they are engaging in it, we see someone or something watching them. Once they finish, the couple keeps riding until they arrive at a gas station. Max enters the convenience store, and we see a sheriff telling the cashier about a missing person. When the sheriff leaves, the cashier says they're all in on it. He also acts goofy with Max, telling him about Bigfoot. While Ashley stands outside alone, several of the townsfolk there indecently provoke her. Upon returning to her, Max witnesses it. Those townsfolk also give Max a hard time for being a convict. He offers them a slight correction by saying he's an ex-convict. When the couple rides off again, an argument ensues between them due to Max drinking alcohol. He tells her that he's scared. While she has her eyes off the road, she partially slams into a person. It is a severely injured man, but his injuries do not look like they came from the car hitting him. At that moment, the man's body starts reacting. Ashley wants to call the police, yet Max, having just left prison, tells her not to do it. She does it anyway. As she talks, rocks get thrown at them from within the woods, so Max quickly makes sure they hide behind the car. Who would be throwing rocks like that? An injured man coupled with rock throwing in the same area should tell us something very troublesome exists for our protagonist. One of those rocks lands on Max's head, knocking him back. He rolls downhill and splashes into the water at the bottom. Ashley goes there to see him floating, unconscious. She is left with no choice except to dive in. Holding him, she pulls him along the moving stream. Luckily, the stream takes them to a location where their lives are spared. It could have easily turned out differently. Ashley collects Max before urging him to regain consciousness. After she pounds on his chest, her husband wakes up. She informs him about what happened. Shortly after, he starts shivering because of the cold. Even though she went through the same swim as him, Ashley seems to deal with the aftermath better, so she tries to warm Max. They are now far removed from their car, in a place they do not know. Their circumstance went from okay to ugly in a matter of seconds. Will they manage to find their way back in such complicated conditions? Back at the location of their vehicle, we partially see a monster coming to their car to start moving it. The monster also takes the injured man. We come to understand now how he ended up like that. Then, we observe the sheriff coming to some woman near the police station. She asks if he found the missing person. After he says he hasn't, she demands answers, or threatens she will have his job. As the man walks away, she says he knows something he's not telling them. The sheriff enters the station, where he asks a fellow officer if he's part of the Bigfoot conspiracy. The officer gives him a negative. Shortly after, a woman comes to the sheriff to tell him there was a 911 call with no name. This news causes the man to go back out. Back to the couple stranded in the wilderness, we see them struggling to walk. Ashley has a working lighter, so that will help them. She gathers some sticks to make a fire, while Max lies recovering from his misfortune. Once they have the fire, the couple remove their wet clothes to warm themselves properly. Meanwhile, the sheriff rides along the road on which the accident happened. He stops to investigate it. After he has done that, he radios someone to tell them what he needs. While he talks, he is being watched. At night, the couple is still warming themselves by the fire. Being a good husband, Max tells his wife he will protect her. He talks more about the shivs he made in prison to prove he is serious about being protective. Although he regrets having done time there, the man seems proud of his shiv-making ability. He assures her that everything will be okay, and she has to trust him. After that, we see the sheriff with several personnel at the scene of the accident. They found the vehicle, along with the pictures we saw Max looking at. The sheriff wants a fellow officer to check on Max's records, since he was an inmate. The next scene has a man approaching Ashley, as she sits resting near the finished fire. For a brief moment, we see it as the injured man she hit with her car. However, it was only a dream. His image haunts her because she struck him. Ashley calls out to Max, who comes running over to her. It seems like he is back in good health. Fire plus sleep was all he needed. Ashley wants to know where her clothes are, because they're not there anymore. This prompts Max to give her his shirt. While they are making little progress in dealing with their unlucky situation, we see they are not alone there. The creature's hand reaches out to touch the dirt. If it wanted to, it could take the lives of our protagonists on a whim. Instead, it stays hidden, allowing them to go on exploring. So the couple walks through the wilderness without weapons. But forget weapons, they hardly have any clothes. As they walk, we see the monster watching them, while staying unseen. Soon enough, it reveals itself to us from its wooden camouflage. Lucky for the couple, they get to hear some people talking in the distance. They guess that they could be those troublemakers they encountered at the gas station, though. This makes their situation less lucky than it otherwise could have been. Ashley and Max don't want to deal with them, yet they don't have a choice. At the police station, the deputy delivers Max's records to the sheriff. we get to hear what he was in for. One of his reasons was for attacking a kid. The policemen argue about what could have happened out there on the road. Once the deputy mentions Bigfoot, the sheriff says he doesn't believe in that nonsense. Back in the woods, our couple locates the people they heard. Much to their chagrin, they truly are the townsfolk with the nasty attitudes. Being protective of Ashley, Max wants to deal with them alone, so the man makes himself known while she hides. When he asks to use a cell phone, the gang gives him a hard time, while telling him they don't have one. Since they don't, he at least wants them to point him in the direction of the road. Again, the gang has fun messing around with the man who has already had his share of trouble. It doesn't take long for them to ask him where his wife is. All he says is that she's around. The third thing Max asks for is a radio. The leader happens to have one, though he says it doesn't work. He also doesn't let Max look at it after the man asks to see it. The gang lets him know they don't like him because he is a convict. Soon enough, the ex-convict tells them he is done playing around. While they talk, the monster sits behind Ashley to take some of her hair. Having felt it, she turns around to see nothing is now there. Regardless, it scares her to the point of running out to Max. Of course, this excites the group of troublemakers. The leader soon decides to help them. It's unclear whether he's joking or not. Yet he does give Ashley a coat, and the group starts walking. In the meantime, the sheriff talks to the man who towed our protagonist's vehicle. The man thinks it was pushed. Not knowing what to believe, the sheriff sees scratches on it. They look like they came from a claw, but what claw is strong enough to scratch metal? Following that, the officer places missing posters of Ashley and Max at the convenience store at the gas station. The cashier, acting goofy again, claims that Bigfoot got them. The sheriff has learned not to pay attention to him. Back in the woods, we see the gang making progress as they traverse along the road. The monster is trailing them, interested in the humans. It truly does look like it could be Bigfoot. Eventually, Ashley says they are going the wrong way. This makes the leader educate her that they are going to their trucks. That's why they are going in what looks like the opposite direction. Later, they stop walking because the leader wants to talk about Ashley again. He mentions how Max is protective of her, even though he doesn't need to be. According to him, this is how convicts behave around their food. Max upsets some of them by talking back. Then, one of them starts talking about how the radio works. After saying it a few times, he realizes he was not supposed to say that. So he runs away, giving the excuse that he has to relieve himself. Another one follows him. This prompts the leader to order another one to go to retrieve them. While the two are out there, the one who gave the excuse ends up relieving himself anyway. His friend gets the worst surprise of his life, getting an arrow shot through him. The other one soon sees this, and we see it as Bigfoot using a bow. Before the man can process what is happening, he gets an arrow through him as well. In his final moment, he witnesses how this strange monster approaches him. If only he were seeing it without his mortal wound, it would have been a spectacular sight. Alas, he witnesses this monster up close as it places its hands on his head. After that, our attention gets focused on the man who was sent to retrieve them. He yells out to his friends, though no one answers. Hearing unknown sounds, he readies his rifle out of fear. However, it isn't enough to make him feel secure, so he starts running. Since he runs recklessly in the uneven woods, he falls, injuring his hand. Looking at it shows him how severe his wound is. He stands against a tree, which is where Bigfoot finds him. It uses a hatchet to end the man. That is now 3 people claimed by the legendary monster. The crew is now smaller, and Ashley asks to use the radio now that she knows it's operational. So they argue with her. While they do, a 4th member gets shot with an arrow. The leader thinks he fell as a joke, but he sees blood on his shoe. They quickly come to see that something serious is happening. The group readies its weapons in response, with one of them spotting Bigfoot in the distance. He keeps firing out of fear, forcing the leader to jump on him to make the man stop. Yet when he gets up, he accidentally shoots one of his friends. At that moment, Bigfoot approaches him, and the man has no more ammo to shoot the monster with. Bigfoot's effort to end the man's life is minimal in comparison. Afterward, Ashley comes to Max, who lies wounded on the ground. A hatchet surprises her by flying into the ground near them. Once Bigfoot approaches, his roar causes her to run in fear. She hides in an opening under a tree. However, Bigfoot finds her. It reaches out for the lady, but can't manage to grab her. Even though she can't be reached, Ashley realizes it's not safe to stay there since the monster knows she is there. So she gets out to keep running away. Very soon, she hides with a surviving member of the group. Safety is not on their side, though, because Bigfoot lifts the man by his head. With its monstrous strength, it rips the man's mouth open. Ashley is fortunate enough to keep running. Bigfoot shoots an arrow at her, though it does not impale the lady. She was lucky to have the projectile fly past her, but she is unlucky to have fallen because of that. Bigfoot comes to collect her. As it carries her, it comes to the man whose mouth it ruined. It steps on him to bring his suffering to an end. At that location, Bigfoot drops Ashley. The monster then comes to an unconscious Max to place its knife on his neck. It decides not to cut him, it just steps on him without force. At that point, the leader of the deceased gang shoots Bigfoot in the shoulder, causing it to approach the man to pick him up with one arm. The monster does not end his life, for some reason. It starts taking him away somewhere, along with Ashley. The next scene has the sheriff arriving with the deputy to a gathering the deputy recommended they visit. The sheriff enters a house to see some traditional Native American rituals displayed on a small TV. After that, we see an unidentified person with a carriage coming to Max in the woods. Placing the unconscious man in the carriage, this person starts taking him elsewhere. Meanwhile, the sheriff enters a tent with the other officer. It is a small house that Max gets delivered to. Inside, we see it is a grotesque woman that has taken him there. Though she looks like a witch, she tends to the injured man. Afterward, Ashley wakes up in worse conditions. She is restrained in what looks like a cave, surrounded by many skeletal remains. The other man soon also wakes up there. Once he does, Bigfoot emerges from the darkness without his wooden mask. Ashley attempts to escape, yet she cannot. She is forced to witness how Bigfoot takes a knife to disembowel the man who injured it, while it removes his insides. The scene switches to the grotesque woman preparing something to aid in Max's recovery. Next, we cycle between scenes to what could be called the most civilized of the three. The sheriff sits in the tent to experience the traditional chanting of his people, even though he is far from being connected to his heritage. Soon enough, he drinks a special drink prepared for him. Cycling back to the most primal setting, Bigfoot tends to the wound the man gave him by applying a burning stick to it. From this, we learn that its mental abilities are not exactly subhuman in every way. Back in the tent, the sheriff has to vomit up what he drank. He then perceives that the deputy's eyes have turned entirely black. The drink has affected him. In her small house, the grotesque woman removes the pellets that got into Max's shoulder when the scared man accidentally shot his friend. After she has done that, she begins sewing the wound. It isn't clear why she has decided to help him like this. Perhaps that is just her nature. In the tent, the sheriff's visions have become fully developed. He now sees the chanting man as some fully dressed ritualistic dancer who changes from one form to another. It now looks like what he observed on the small television. He does not know how to deal with it. Later, the chanting man starts removing something from a woman. It looks like it could be her insides. At that point, the sheriff cannot take any more, so he exits the tent. Looking up at the night sky, he notices it is unusually bright. With some inexplicable circumstances, the sheriff has appeared at the grotesque woman's house. When Max wakes up, the sheriff tells him he was out all night. The man wants to know where Ashley is. He gets told there is a creature who lives in the woods. It is as ancient as the sheriff's tribe remembers. Legend says that when their chief meets his demise, his spirit comes back as Bigfoot. The sheriff informs Max that Bigfoot is hurt, which means they stand a chance to stop it. Another thing Max learns is that Bigfoot has seen the chaos and evil of man for too long. It seems so sudden that the lawman starts delivering these words, as if he's now an expert on the subject. He did not even believe in Bigfoot yesterday. Following this, the sheriff shows Max some melee weapons on the table. No guns can be used, because the monster can smell gunpowder a mile away. The sheriff also gives him a jar that contains a substance to hide his smell. He advises that Max put a lot of it on himself. Upon leaving the house with a spear, Max sees the grotesque woman sitting outside. She starts laughing for an unknown reason. Alone in the house, the sheriff takes his gun and applies some of the special substance on it before wrapping it in fabric. It seems like the man is not taking his own advice completely. Will it block the smell of the gunpowder? Then, the sheriff becomes ready to venture out into the woods with Max, both armed with spears. They begin walking, while the woman beats on a drum to make their journey epic. In the next scene, Bigfoot comes to Ashley, only to have her spit something sharp at it that she kept in her mouth. It makes him fall back. However, rather than hurting her, the monster just grabs her in anger. Is she precious to it? Subsequently, Bigfoot takes some chains with shackles on them. It leaves the cave with a plan to use them. While the monster is gone, Ashley manages to remove her restraints. Amid the rubble there, she finds a rifle along with a revolver to equip herself. Once she does, she leaves the cave too. We see the sheriff walking with Max in the woods, with their spears readied. Max wants to know what the plan is. Very generally, all the sheriff says is that Max must find his wife so they can return to their son. After he says this, they go separate ways for some reason. Alone, the sheriff becomes scared, which makes him unwrap his gun. We observe that Bigfoot senses something. It is quite likely the gunpowder. It doesn't take long for the beast to locate the sheriff, to bring him down. However, as it bites him, the lawman manages to shoot it a few times. Bringing the gun was not a complete mistake. He used it to cripple the monster for the couple. Ashley hears the struggle, so she finds them. She uses her rifle to fire at Bigfoot, but she misses. Her second shot misses too. Bigfoot, though, does not come at her. It just walks away. She tosses the rifle and takes out her revolver, before searching for the beast. Afterward, Max comes to the lifeless sheriff. He takes the gun that rests in his hand. He then sees someone moving, which turns out to be Ashley. Getting her attention with a quiet whisper, she becomes happy to see him alive. Yet upon hearing Bigfoot, she goes over to it, leaving Max's side. All the man hears is gunfire, until she starts running out to urge him to do the same. When they stop, Ashley realizes she is out of ammo, so she drops her gun. At that moment of their reunion, Max gets a memory of their son. The idea comes to him that he has to sacrifice himself for his family. This makes him say to Ashley that she has to run away, as fast as she can. Of course, she doesn't want to do it. Her husband just spent over 1 year in prison, and a day hasn't passed since they've been reunited. Now there is a high chance of him never coming back, if he is to face a legendary monster who thrives in the woods. However, the man is serious. Even though she hesitates, she comes to understand there is nothing she can do. Once Bigfoot presents itself to Max, The man provokes the monster to come at him. He fires at it with the sheriff's gun. The injured Bigfoot starts walking toward him as Max backs away, shooting the beast in the process. The moment he is out of ammo, Max takes out his hatchet before running away. When Bigfoot approaches him, Max throws the hatchet, only to have it land in a tree. Bigfoot punishes him for it by coming forth to smack him into the mud. Yet Max stands up to do the unthinkable. He throws a few punches at the animal that could be, without exaggeration, about 10 times stronger than he is. Of course, the beast does not even budge. The way Max ends up hurting it is by fiercely grabbing at its wounds. But the monster still slams him down in response. So Max crawls in the mud and attempts to pick up a weapon there. Bigfoot does not allow him that luxury, as he picks up the helpless man with one arm. To escape from this situation, Max uses a sharp stick to stab into Bigfoot's arm. He is now allowed to collect the weapon in the mud. As fate would have it, the weapon looks like a shiv, the weapon he was proud of making in prison. He runs away with it, though Bigfoot finds him again. By mistake, Max walks into a bear trap. He struggles to get out of it as the beast draws near. When it comes to him, we see it was Bigfoot that placed it there because it starts dragging the chains attached to it. Yet Max escapes. He is so injured now that he probably has only one more chance at defeating the monster from the woods. Then the monster comes at him, forcing Max to activate his primal nature as he repeatedly stabs Bigfoot with the shiv. Having been already injured as well, it falls to the ground due to those additional wounds. Max uses a rock to finish the job. In the final moments of the film, we see Ashley making it out to the road where she might find peace. Max, however, receives a very unfortunate experience after his tremendous victory against a monster no one else could stop. He gets shot by 2 arrows. From the woods emerge 3 more monsters like the one Max just ended. They take revenge for their fallen friend. Max's chance of getting out of there alive has just become microscopic. Ashley should hope to escape the woods quickly so she can be with her son.